everyone. I am Sonia from WorkSafe Tasmania, and I will be your moderator today. This session is How to Positively Influence Your Workers' Compensation Premium, presented by Jen Pitkiri and Gwen Mackay from WTW Workplace Risk. In recognition of the deep history and culture of this island, we acknowledge Tasmanian Aboriginal people, the original and continuing custodians of the land, sea, and sky. We acknowledge and pay our respects to all Tasmanian Aboriginal people, all of whom have survived invasion and dispossession, and continue to maintain their identity, culture, and Aboriginal rights. Please now take a moment to read the following slide about information received today. Please use the chat tab to type any questions you may have. Those questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Only presenter webcams will be used. Today's presentation is also being recorded and will be available on WorkSafe Tasmania's YouTube channel towards the end of the month. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters, Jen and Gwen from WTW Workplace Risk. WTW Workplace Risk Practice partners with leading organizations across Australia and New Zealand. With a team of 55 plus specialists, they help transform risk into opportunity. With a strong presence in Tasmania, they deliver tailored strategies in work health and safety, workers' compensation, and employee relations for protecting people, reducing costs, and strengthening organizational resilience. Welcome to the webinar team. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Pia, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As mentioned, my name's Gwen Mackay, and I'm the Tasmanian State Manager here at WTW. We're here today to talk about something that's been affecting all employers, which is the increasing price of premium. This is something that's been seen nationally, and Tasmania is no exception. It's a topic that we find often sparks frustration and confusion, and I think the frustration is driven by a combination of not understanding why premiums are increasing, and even more so, the feeling of not having control over that. So today we want to shift that narrative. We're not just here to explain, I guess, why the premiums are going up, but we're here to show you how, as an employer, you can take control of that. So premium increases, they're not random. They're driven by real world factors, such as claims history, industry risk profiles, and regulatory changes. Some of these may feel like they're out of your control, but there are plenty of ways that employers can influence their premium. We also want to show you how by influencing your premium, you're not only improving your business's bottom line, but you can do it in a way that improves the safety culture for your employees at the same time. We encourage questions. We'll go through them at the end and we'll answer as many as we can for you. So let's get started. For those of you who aren't sure, I guess, what a premium rate is. A premium rate is essentially the percentage of your total remuneration as an employer that you are required to pay in workers' compensation premiums. So if you have remuneration of $1 million and a premium rate of 2%, you'll be paying $20,000 in workers' comp premiums that year. What you see on the screen here is a graph which shows the last 5 years of recommended average premium rates for Tasmania. Every industry does have its own recommended industry rate, but this is the scheme average. The increases you see here are not unique to Tasmania and are being seen right around the country, with the national average being a 13% increase over the last 5 years and Tasmania seeing an 11% increase. Sorry, just move to the next slide. There we go. So when we look at the key drivers of these increases, it's consistent across the board nationally, and we'll run through some of the main ones. So firstly, we have an increase in volume of claims. Obviously, the more claims you have, the more costs that are going to be out. So there's been a 20.5% increase in claims that have had more than 1 week time loss since 2012-13. On top of that, you have the volume of mental injury claims. They've increased by a whopping 97.3% in 10 years, and they have a median compensation amount of 65.4K. We all know how complex mental injury claims are, and that's no doubt impacting the next point you see there with the increase in severity and length of claims. 21.3% of claims in 21-22 had more than 13 weeks of time loss. When you think about that, that's a long time. That's over 3 months off work, compared to only 13.4% back in 2012-13. Add to that the rising healthcare costs. So healthcare prices nationally have increased by an average of 2.26%, higher than the average inflation every year since 2012-13. And then add on to that legal involvement. The more legal is being seen on claims than before. That naturally adds cost to the claim, as well as adding to the complexity and the duration of the claims. We all know that when we see legal come on a claim, often the relationship deteriorates with the worker, leading to more complexities and making it more difficult to achieve a return to work. So all of that combined leads to increased premium rates. So if we move on to, I guess, Tasmania as a whole, and compare it to the rest of the country. As some of you may be aware, particularly if you're involved on a national workers' compensation program, there are two different types of workers' compensation schemes in Australia, and it's important to know the difference so that you know how you can impact your premiums. So firstly, we have the underwritten states, also known as risk states, which Tasmania is one of. And we also have managed fund states. So managed fund states refers to a system where the state regulator essentially manages and underwrites all of the workers' compensation policies in that state. In these states, private insurers do not compete to provide coverage based on price, and your premiums are based on a set premium calculation method based solely on your industry rate, your remuneration, and most importantly, your claims costs. Underwritten states such as Tasmania work quite differently. So what is an underwritten state? So underwritten states include 4 states, and territories, WA, ACT, NT, and Tasmania. In these states, there is no set formula for how your premiums are calculated. Underwritten states are a commercial market with private insurers underwriting the policies themselves. What this means for you is that premiums can be negotiated with the insurers, and you can shop around to get the best deal for you as an individually underwritten employer. The insurers are still regulated by the state regulator, and the regulator still provides suggested industry premium rates every year. However, insurers do have the power to alter that premium rate based on your individual risk profile. One other key difference is that you choose your renewal date. There is some flexibility in some of the managed states for renewal dates, but the majority are 30 June renewals. In Tasmania, you can choose the renewal date that best suits your business. You might ask why you would do that. Some reasons that choosing a renewal date can be beneficial, that if you think about it, probably around 90%, I don't know the actual figure, but around 90%, I would assume, of policies renew at 30 June. And you can imagine how busy the underwriters are leading up to June. This might mean that you don't receive the care and attention that you deserve. So to have more engagement with the underwriter, you might want to consider having a renewal date at a quieter time of the year. So underwriters in Tasmania are QBE, Allianz, CGU, GIO, and Zurich, as well as underwriting the policies. They also manage the claims and handle the premiums. Every policy year has its premiums calculated twice. Once at the beginning of the policy period based on your estimated wages, and once again at the end of the policy period with actual wages. So in every given year, for every policy that you have, you should expect to pay a deposit premium for the upcoming year, as well as an adjusted amount for the prior year for every policy. As you can imagine, this can get quite complex and hard to keep track of if you have numerous policies, particularly if you have multiple states as well. So I want to ask you a question. So I've got a poll for you. I want to ask you, do you feel that you have a good understanding of what an insurer or an underwriter looks at on your program when determining your premium rate? I think the poll is live. Thank you. It's looking like most people are coming in, yes, but only the basics, which is what I expected. I think most people understand the rough idea of what underwriters would be looking at, similar to any other insurance, really. They're looking at how many claims you've had in the past, all of that, just like you would with your own, personal insurance. So that tracks well with what I was expecting to see. So if we go into, I guess, a bit more detail on that. So what are they looking at? Sorry, there we go. So as I mentioned earlier, underwriters are guided by the suggested premium rates for each industry, and they can adjust these based on your own individual risk profile. So we've listed some of the key factors the underwriters are looking at when determining what premium rate to give you as an individual employer. You might be looking at some of these and thinking, but how on earth would an insurer know half of this stuff about us? And that's a very, very valid question. They may not know, or they may be making false assumptions based on what they think they know about your business. This is why it's incredibly important to sell yourself to the insurer leading into each renewal. We'll get a bit more into how to do this and more in the second half of today's presentation. But yeah, selling yourself and alerting the underwriter to what they do not know or the good initiatives you've got in place is extremely important leading into renewal to get the best rate you possibly can. One very important thing to know before I hand over to Jen for the next section, some of you may have heard of the term loss ratio, but I'm assuming some of you haven't. And if you have heard it, you may not fully understand what this means. So loss ratios are a crucial aspect for an underwriter when looking at your risk profile. Because in underwritten states, unlike in managed fund states, the costs on claims going out are the underwriter's own money. They need to ensure that they are recouping enough money from you as the employer in premiums to not only be able to pay those claims costs on your claims, but also function as a profitable employer themselves. So to determine a loss ratio, underwriters will look at 5 years of claims and premium history and remuneration history and determine the profitability of your policy by looking at how much they have paid out in claims costs compared to how much premium they have taken from you. I have an example on the screen here for you in the table. You can see that the employer has barely had any claims in some years. But in other years, in particular 1 year, you can see there the 23-24 year have had extremely high costs. So the underwriters look at the total 5 years, but just to note, they will be particularly concerned if the most recent years look to be deteriorating. So this employer's loss ratio over the 5 years is 93.94%. So even though it's primarily driven by 1 year of the 5, this means that the overall in the last 5 years, the underwriter has actually lost money due to this policy. So the underwriter's preference is for a loss ratio to be around 70%, with break even being around 80%. So they're looking for employers to have a loss ratio of around 70%. That means that they are able to cover the costs of the claims of your policy at the same time as essentially being able to run as a business. If your loss ratio falls into the green section on the right hand, the little, I don't know what that's called, the table, the gauge, thank you. If your loss ratio falls into the green section here, you have a really good case to fight for reduced or at least stable premium rates. As you move further into the red section, the harder you are going to have to fight to limit premium increases. And that's when the selling yourself will become even more important to limit those premium increases. So I guess that's the why behind the premium rate increases and also the drivers of those increases and what the underwriters are looking at. So I will hand over to Jen to delve into how you as an employer can influence this. But before we do that, I do have another poll, and it's a bit of a free text one. So the question is, what do you find the most challenging aspect of managing your workers' compensation premium and policies? And then I'll hand over to Jen. Now, I don't actually know how to read the responses, but I'm sure they're inspiring. I
That's
can
all
see. Yeah.
all good. While we're waiting to read those, we might get into how to influence your workers' compensation spend to Gwen's point. So there's a number of different ways that you can look to change or influence your spend on an annual basis. The first of which is to ensure that your calculations you get are accurate. It seems um, silly or a simple thing, but it is often a mistake that can occur from a simple error in maybe the wages that are getting sent through to an underwriter for calculation or the rate. So checking those first and foremost is a critical part before invoices are getting paid. The second is confirming the appropriateness of industry rates. Really, workers' compensation shouldn't be a set and forget for organisations. Having a look at these on an annual basis to ensure your industry rate is still appropriate, or reviewing whether you've made any material change to the business activity that you're engaging with, can be really beneficial to ensuring that your premium and your premium spend is in line with what you should be paying as well. Considering or taking advantage of all available discounts, the benefit of having an underwritten state program is that there are a number of different ways that you can design your program, which we'll have a look at a little bit later on as well. Some of those do have discounts available, so reaching out to either the underwriter directly or a broker and consultant to explore what would work for your organization will be a critical part to play in ensuring that you are not overspending or overpaying your workers' compensation premiums as well. Gwen's already touched on submitting wages annually or realistically twice a year, but acknowledging that there are differences and all information required is accurate is really important too. Each jurisdiction has its own remuneration matrix of what needs to be included, and ensuring that what is being sent through to underwriters for calculation is accurate is a crucial part in determining your premium as well. Ensuring that wage increases aren't just rolled over annually with a 4% on last year, it can be an easy habit for organisations to fall into, but ensuring that we are getting accurate wage estimations will be really beneficial and can make a material difference to the organisation. There can at times be underestimation penalties, so ensuring that you're working with finance or payroll to get those information accurately is important as well. And then the last one we've got there is reviewing the alternative premium arrangements, which goes into the next slide to have a bit of a look at the different options that there are within Tasmania. Mostly people would be on the conventional scheme, or most small to medium employers particularly would be on that. There is other options available, one of those being a burner scheme, whereby you pay a lower minimum premium and then your costs develop out over either 3, 4, or 5 year. Again, you can negotiate that extended period, and you can then also negotiate the adjustment figures that your claims costs are calculated as well. Having a burnout can be really financially beneficial for organisations, but it does take more time from in terms of injury management and forecasting to ensure that the burner is appropriate for your organisation as well. Claims experience discounts are also available in Tasmania and can be negotiated at renewal. Again, they're quite flexible and fluid in what those might look like for each organisation. So, working with a broker is really important to ensure that you're getting the best deal for your organisation and making it make sense. A lot of organisations also like to negotiate risk management funding into their renewal terms. That gives you some funding available direct from the insurer, some skin in the game from the insurer to show that you want to improve your risk profile for your organisation, to invest in prevention, whether it be in the safety or in the employee relations space, and you're working on improving safety in your organisation. And the last one there is self insurance. It's really more for the larger end of town, and you should only really be looking at self insurance through a financial feasibility as the first step as well. The other option is premium funding. If your organization is often shocked or um, struggles to pay the invoicing or even just wants a different option of paying premiums up front, premium funding is an option available for all employers of all sizes in Tasmania as well. Gwen touched on this before as well, how to better sell your risk. It's really important that you don't just fill out the renewal questionnaire with same information as the year before on an annual basis. You need to be looking closer at what your insurance strategy is and program design, working with experts to ensure that you're not just doing a set and forget like often people do with their car insurance and home insurance. It's a Workers' compensation is often one of the largest insurance premium spends for organizations. So, looking into what you are spending and can you influence or impact that should be done on a regular basis. Compiling the pertinent information to Gwen's point earlier around what fantastic safety initiatives that the organisation might be investing in, what resources are available to try and influence claims outcomes or to mitigate claims in the first place is important. Developing and presenting submissions to the underwriter. We had a couple in the poll before that people understood some of the basics, but there's a lot of information that goes left unsaid unless you're actually speaking to them directly. Presenting what is happening within the business, what risk mitigation you've engaged with or you'll be looking to engage with in the next 12, 24, 36 months can help influence your premium and make you a better risk that the insurer wants to invest in by going with a lower premium rate. And then the last piece, the fun end, I would say, is the negotiation. That's when you usually get in and get your initial rates from the insurer, and then you work out, is it reasonable? Do you want to push further? What do you think is reasonable? How does it compare to the industry rate? And can we get any better rates than that as well? Speaking to a professional or expert is often really beneficial in those circumstances because it can be hard when it's not your day-to-day job to know whether your rate's reasonable as well. Next up, I think we've got another poll coming now, which is, do you use data to track your performance within your organization? Okay, we're getting a couple of yes but not wells through, which is probably the most common, and a couple no's as well. Data can be a really powerful tool. Often, I would hope what I've got on the screen here is a little bit of a screenshot of a Tasmanian insurer report, which has been de-identified, just to show you what you might be able to get access to on a monthly basis. Getting a bit of a data dump is fantastic, but knowing how to use it and what to do with it next is really can be a bit of a game changer for an organization. My opinion is workers' compensation is one of those unusual areas in that it touches so many different parts of an organization. It can't be siloed. It has to work within finance, safety, HR, ER, and in a number of operations as well. So knowing what to do with this data and how it can assist different lines of business is important too. Taking an insurer data report and having a look a bit closer at the average cost of claims, the type of claims, how long claims are staying open, and the types of claims can be crucial in working out where a business needs to invest money for a risk mitigation strategy, how we're performing, and what we can forecast premium rates might be looking like into the future as well. We've got a couple of case studies here because insurers purely will look at your data as well to understand how you're performing and what you're doing in an organization. So here I've just got a couple of flags for underwriters. So one of the things that underwriters often talk to brokers around is reporting delays between the date of injury and the notification to insurer. They don't like to see this, even if you don't believe that a incident will become a claim or it's going to be a large issue. If you've got a couple of these, like you can see here, we've got an injury on the 9th in September 2022, and it wasn't notified until March 2023. That in itself is a red flag to an insurer. They get concerned around how they're being managed. Is the employee relationship being impacted? And how will that claim likely develop out into because they've had 6 months with no treatment? The opportunity really here is to develop an early intervention program to mitigate risk and provide training to leaders around the importance of early intervention and early reporting so that we don't have these kind of red flags being seen by underwriters when it comes to our renewal period as well. Another one is around the high costing psychological claims, particularly those relating to performance management. Underwriters get concerned that there could be a culture issue within an organisation if there's multiple of these coming through in a claim report. The opportunity here we would recommend is reviewing and potentially amending any processes or pointing out to the underwriter how they came about, why, and what the organisation has done to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Rolling out training to people leaders can be crucial when it comes to performance management to ensure that we're not seeing or incurring claims because there's been uh, just slight issues which could have been avoided in the performance management process. Gwen?
Thanks so much, Jen. So we'll run through some more practical things that you can do as an employer to influence your premium, and also be able to sell your risk profile to underwriters. So practical initiatives that you can undertake that you can then take to your underwriter as you're leading up to your renewal. So first of all, we have around the frameworks and the systems. So have an injury management and return to work program in place so that everyone's roles and responsibilities are clear when it comes to injuries and claims. This includes the employees as well. Consider putting together a doctor or physio network that you can refer your own employees to if and when they're injured. So what this does is it ensures consistency and it allows the treaters that are the ones that are reviewing for the capacity and are giving the workers the capacity to have a really good, broad understanding of your business because they are dealing with your employees. And ideally, at the start of that, you would want to introduce them to your workplace. They know the jobs, they know the roles, so that it gives you, as an employer, some control over the narrative of the claim and the capacity moving forward. As Jen mentioned this before, have an early intervention program, such as a triage solution or an injury reporting hotline. This means early treatment for your employees, negating that delay in reporting, hopefully, that Jen was mentioning before, that underwriters look for in the data. But not only all of this, ensure that for all of these external providers that you're using service level agreements in place so that you have the reassurance they are meeting the standard that will support you in achieving your goals. So all of these initiatives can be used to sell your risk profile as more positive to an underwriter. As part of your injury management program, have really strong processes and also collaboration internally to allow proactive and supportive recovery at work. If you are acting as a silo as an injury management person or a return to work coordinator and you're trying to do this all on your own without the support and collaboration of senior leadership and managers on the ground, you're not going to get very far. You need to ensure that all managers and senior leadership are on board internally and working together to identify the suitable duties quickly, whether this be in the same work location or alternative ones. I've seen many times on clients that have multiple workplaces or work sites where it should be the easier to find alternative duties. But what you often find is because it's so complex and those divisions or work sites are so siloed, it actually becomes harder to identify duties. Come up with a way that all the work sites and managers are collaborating together and understand the importance of return to work. Even any return to work even if it's just a few hours initially, is better than none. If you can show that you achieve early return to work, even if it's not a full return to work, through the data, like what Jen was showing, then you can negotiate better with the underwriters. Even if you've had poor loss ratio in prior years, the fourth, fifth year of that history, if you can show in recent years you've really had a turning point with your return to work rates, you can negotiate, you have more negotiating power to go into those renewal discussions. Ensure that you, as the employer, are across your claims and that you are driving the strategies. Whilst the insurers are managing the claims, you as the employer should be driving the return to work discussions. You want to make sure that you and the insurer are on the same page. So ask them for monthly high-risk claims catch-ups. Ask them for claims reviews, particularly if you're feeling like you're not collaborating well with them at the moment. This doesn't just help you by making sure that actions are being undertaken, it also helps the insurer. You're suddenly on the same page with the insurer and you're all working towards the same goal. This will be seen as a positive by the underwriter, as it shows that you are engaged and you are driving towards achieving successful outcomes. If you do feel like you're not getting what you need from your insurer, make sure you tell them. And if nothing changes, consider your options for changing to a different insurer. Collaboration between an employer and insurer, I can't overstate the importance of that. It's extremely important to be able to achieve the positive results you want, so do not settle for anything less. Ensure that you are familiar with what is going on your program through the data that Jen was talking about and all the other things that we've talked about today. Don't leave this all up to the insurer and the underwriter. Have the meaningful reporting in place so that you are fully across where your concern areas currently lie and where they may lie in the future based on incoming trends. That way, if you know where your concern areas are, you can put the initiatives in place to be able to talk to the underwriter about that before it's even started to become an issue in your premiums and your claims costs. So essentially, you're getting on the front foot. You're identifying the issues first that the underwriter will eventually identify, and you've already got a solution in place. One thing to consider is allocating out your premium to a workplace or division level, so a premium allocation model based on your claims costs. What this means is that you can split out your premium, and work sites or workplaces or divisions or whatever your company calls those are responsible for their own premium. This ensures and increases accountability and responsibility of individual sections, as well as brings in operational engagement, because they do not want their division or workplace paying more premiums than their peers. And if you feel like you want to be able to do all of this, but you just don't have either the resources or the knowledge internally, then consider external support through either a consultancy or even outsourced claims and injury management. This way you can ensure you have experts guiding you, managing your claims, and driving the insurer to achieve positive outcomes, and will result in a positive return on investment. They can also support you leading up to renewal to sell your positive risk profile to the underwriters to achieve lower rates. And that's actually us for today. We've sped through. If there are any questions, we can take them now. And if also, just before we get to the questions, if there are any questions you have that you would prefer to talk to us offline or just want to discuss anything we've talked about today, please reach out to us and we'd love to have a chat.
Thank you so much, Em. Thank you so much, Gwen. I think we do have one question here. I'll just quickly read that out for you. So it says, on the previous slide, there was a dot point, employer to attend GP reviews. Is this possible, or do you need to have a rehab provider?
It is possible. You obviously need to have consent of the worker to attend, and the recommendation would be you allow the worker to have their treatment, have their time, and then you would come in at the end for just a bit of a consultation and update on what suitable duties and return to work would look like. So you're not there the whole time, you're probably in there for 10 minutes. Or the recommendation generally is if you are doing a case conference, you'd book a double appointment. So you have the allow the worker to have their time, and then you've got adequate time to have any consultation and discussion as well.
Thank you, Jen. One of the attendee has requested to recap the burner part, just kind of a brief, if you could just walk through a brief description about the burner section, please.
Is that the burner model?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to cover that, Jen?
Yeah, sure. So a burner model is or will be negotiated as part of renewal, whether you want to go down a conventional or a burner model. A burner model is essentially you pay a lower deposit premium and then you pay adjustments to that premium at allotted points in time. So, for example, one of my clients is on the burner model with a 4-year runoff, and that means at 24, 36, and 48 months post the start of the policy period, they pay adjustments, which and the adjustment is calculated based off an adjustment factor. So that is your paid costs and your net incurred costs times that adjustment factor. So adjustments are a natural byproduct of a burner model, particularly when you do have claims coming through and you have to expect to pay those adjustments. However, it can be financially beneficial and sometimes can be lower than a conventional rate as well. Really, you're comparing yourself to your own performance compared in conventional, you're being impacted more by the scheme performance. I think that's fair. Gwen, anything you'd like to add?
No, that's perfect. Yeah. They yeah, it's really for employers that are pretty confident in their own systems, their own policies, procedures, and are prepared to take on that risk that they do bring, but they can be really beneficial.
Thank you so much, guys. I think there has been a follow-up question just on the bond burner model again. It says, does this also apply to the rehab consultants?
The rehab consultants question, I assume that was about case conferences um, or GP reviews. Generally, the process with a rehab consultant would be that they too are not present during any treatment, that they allow and would step in to discuss return to work and suitable duties once a GP and the worker are finished with the initial consultation. And general practice would be as well, more often than not these days, would be to book a double appointment. Often GPs are time poor, so by pushing it and allotting further time, it will only be beneficial and lead to better outcomes.
Thank you, Jen. I think we'll just give it a moment or two for more questions to come through. But in the meantime, I was wondering, Gwen and Jen, are there any other commonly asked questions that you get a lot that you would like to share with the attendees?
I think we are talking specifically about Tasmania today, but I think things obviously get more complex, and I'm sure there's some people on the call here that are not just working with the Tasmanian policy. When we start looking at, national employers that have policies in all states, you can imagine that if it's this complex in just Tasmania with multiple premium models, multiple renewal meetings, all of that, is when you do have multiple states policies, is ensuring that you are working them together in a way that is most efficient, and those efficiencies will bring to you as an employer the best outcomes in terms of premium rates. Making sure your risk state policies are with the same insurer, that gives you purchasing power. Yeah, I don't know, Gina, if you've got anything to add to that
Yeah,
or
I'm
anything else.
thinking often we hear frustrations from employers around workers who get a claim through and get a claim accepted, and then they don't actively participate in treatment and what can they do in that space, or can we compliance manage treatment, which is not possible. We appreciate it's a frustration. It's not possible in any state or jurisdiction. But there are obligations within the scheme, and there are things that workers have to do. So being across those kind of obligations and paying more attention to those is probably then worth a discussion with your claims advisor if you don't feel that they're meeting the obligations that a worker must comply with, like having a certificate of capacity, not attending an independent medical examination. That's when we can have more robust conversations around this worker isn't meeting their obligations within a claim. What can we do here, or what are our options as an employer, because we feel that they are prolonging the recovery more than we can force a worker to attend a physio or a doctor if they haven't done so.
Lovely, thank you, Jen. We might just give a minute or two for any other questions. Please feel free to type in your question in the chat box if you have any for Jen and Gwen. I think that's pretty much it. Guys, you've covered a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for that. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just thank you everyone for attending. Reach out to us if you do need any support, guidance, anything, or just to discuss anything we've talked about today in more detail. Jen and I are both more than happy to have a chat.
Thank you so much, Gwen. I think there's one last question that's come through. So it says, we sometimes find that injured employee presents a narrative of the incident that is not accurate or not consistent with witnesses. However, the GP or the med team base treatment on this version. How do we address this?
That can be really tricky, but not uncommon. I think first and foremost, my recommendation would be to have an open and transparent discussion with the case manager or claims advisor, particularly in the early stages if a claim is being pended or investigated further, because they may need to look to undertake some further investigations. Secondly, by also having an independent medical, it can be really crucial for an employer to also be involved in what the letter of instruction to an IME looks like, what questions are being asked, does the mechanism of injury match the diagnosis, noting that this is the incident form, this is the information we have. Gwen, what do you think?
I think the key point there in regards to the investigation is I often see when employers do have the exact frustration that question describes, but then not when it comes to the investigation point, probably the people that are not the most appropriate people are being put forward as witnesses. You've really got to ensure that the right people are being put forward on behalf of the employer to be those witnesses, the people that are going to be able to convey the situation in the best way possible to give you the best chance in defending and putting your side first through.
Thank you so much, guys. There has been another question that's come through. It says, we have had a significant increase in the past month of back injuries after no LTIs for years. How will this potentially affect our insurance premiums?
I think that the first thing you should do is, I guess, review the causation part of that. So like we were talking about before, it's identifying the trend before the underwriter has even gotten a chance to identify it yet, so that you can already go to them with a solution. So what has caused those back injuries? Is there a root cause? Is there something going on that is causing the increase? Is that increase likely to continue? So those questions that you've got to ask yourself, and then essentially address them if there is an underlying cause, so that when those claims do show up on your your claims history, when the underwriter's looking at it, you already have a solution in place and you can explain exactly what happened. Anything else,
And
Jen?
yeah, I think like realistically, the short answer is it could potentially lead to a higher premium rate and premium spend at the end of the day. What's really crucial now is trying to mitigate further costs, because it is at the end of the day the gross incurred, so the paid plus the estimate, which will lead to a higher loss ratio. So if we can try and get those people back to work as quickly as possible on suitable duties and engaging them to try and mitigate a high estimate or a future expected costs on those claims, the more we can try and limit the impact that they could have when it's coming around to renewal the next year. And remembering as well that claims impact for 5 years. So we could be talking about these claims and the impact of those for a number of years yet to come.
Thank you so much, guys. I think that's probably the end of it. We will, no more questions here. Perfect. I guess this brings us to the end. Thank you so much again, Gwen and Jen. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you today. This event has been part of the WorkSafe Tasmania month. Please head to worksafe.tas.gov.au/month to find out what other webinars and seminars we have in store for the rest of this October. There will be a survey link towards the end of the session. We'd love to hear all your feedback. And thank you all for attending today's session. It has been amazing. Please have a great rest of your day and stay safe, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.